Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and we are here this week with a very special guest, a man behind the scenes of so many films and projects. He is none other than Mr. Mark Anthony Austin. Welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here, Joseph.
Pleasure to have you. Glad we were able to connect, and the fans have certainly been looking forward to this. Somebody that you've been requested multiple times, and you've accomplished so much within the industry and still going today. So we would like to kind of rewind and start where you started. Kind of bring us back to growing up as a child or young adult. What are some of your first memories of film?
My first memories of film are the early Walt Disney movies. I grew up loving drawing. And my mother used to think I traced Winnie the Pooh. She'd look at this picture of Winnie the Pooh and be like, that's a great tracing. She didn't realize that the Winnie the Pooh in the book was this big and the Winnie the Pooh that I drew was this big,
Right.
And when she made that connection, she suddenly realized that art was my thing, and she was always my biggest cheerleader for using art for my career, because she said, it's a third of your life, so choose something you love doing. So I didn't think that, being naive and a child, I didn't think there was a job to be had as an artist. And then I found out about graphic design and illustration, and so I geared to be a children's book illustrator. I was going to write stories and illustrate the books. And when I went to college to do my general art course and I get my diploma, at the end of the general art course, she said, do you still want to be an illustrator? And I said, well, I've always loved animation. She goes, well, we don't do that. We haven't anyone that can teach that here. But if you really want to do animation, then you could try and get into a college if you do some storyboards. So that set me on my animation path, and my animation path led me to my effects career path, and that's how I got started. But I got into movies just by chance, because I originally started as a 2D animator, doing the pencil and paper drawings for commercials in England. And we were doing commercials for all over Europe. So I did lots of commercials for Portugal and Switzerland and Germany. And I was doing that for 5 years. And at the end of it, the company decided they were going to pack up and declare bankruptcy and retire. And suddenly I was out of a job. And my friend called me from a bar. He said, oh, I'm at a bar. I went to the Jurassic Park interview in London. I said, oh, it's great, Steve, He goes, yeah, they're looking for animators. I said, Steve, I don't know the first thing about computers, They're not going to want me. No, they want animators. I said, I don't think they want 2D animators. And he, no, they do. I said, it doesn't make any sense, because they don't do 2D animation. And he goes, no, because traditionally at ILM, the technical guys would animate, and learn animation and learn from Phil Tippett and people like that. And, they were kind of developing their craft, but there were far more 2D animators in the world to be employed and trained for a couple of weeks on the computer. That's a much quicker turnaround, a few weeks training on the computer rather than years and years and years and years developing animation skills.
Right.
So the next thing I knew, I was sent a contract from ILM to start at Industrial Light and Magic, January of 1994. This was so a long time ago.
That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, ILM, such a massive company within the industry. What was your initial reaction when you found out that you got the job?
My mind was blown, just because I grew up loving everything George touched. I read the book Star Wars before I saw the movie. I saw the movie I don't know how many times. So I was a full-on Star Wars fan. Being employed at ILM, that's the penultimate, job.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I started in January of '94, I was only going to be there for 18 months. That's how long the contract was for Casper. And I fully figured that at the end of the 18 months, I was going to be going back to England and, having done a movie and could say to people, yes, I worked on a movie, instead of commercials, you get no credits.
Right.
Like people in England would know my commercials, but nobody knew I did them. Yeah. So it was kind of, it was nice having a credit at the end of Casper showing that I had contributed to the movie. So for me, it was, I was in heaven. I felt like I was being paid to be on vacation working at ILM.
And what was that experience like with Casper specifically?
Sorry?
What was the experience working on Casper like specifically?
For me, it was a love story because this is when I fell in love with a computer. And like I said, until then, all I'd done is pencils and paintbrushes. And so I still to this day cannot type. I wish I'd learned to type at school. But I missed computer studies by 1 year. The year below me at school got to do computer studies. So I missed out. And so it's so weird that this is my career now, computers. Right. I missed that opportunity. But Casper was amazing because Casper, they threw me in the deep end. Within 3 weeks of the training, they asked me if I wanted to be the lead animator for Casper. And I had a group of 6 animators working with me primarily. And we bombed through all the Casper footage so fast that we ended up working on ghostly trio shots for the remainder of the movie because we got through our Casper footage really fast. So. But it was great just working. I didn't think I was going to see George Lucas, work with him, but I thought I might see him in the hallway. I never did. No. Whenever he did come to the studio, they'd say, nobody go in the hallways, nobody hassle George. So I never got to actually work with him on Casper. But I did get to speak and work with Steven Spielberg, which was another big director from my childhood that I admired and revered. So that was amazing. That was the first of 3 collaborations with Spielberg, Casper being the first one. No, it was good. It was the thing I didn't appreciate on Casper is how ahead of the game we were, that we were actually kind of forging where computer animation is today. Like we were making blend shapes for the lip sync before there were such things as blend shapes. We even named them blend shapes.
Wow.
Which is a studio standard now. But they were called Casper shapes because Casper was the first character to have mouth shapes designed for, and we did some trials with how we were going to make his mouth move. There was 2 camps. There was my camp, which was ended up the blend shape. In other words, you model the shapes and you let the computer interpolate between.
Yeah.
There's another camp that had motion sensors around the lips, and that was the creepiest looking Casper you ever would see. That would be the horror version of Casper if they'd gone that route. But I didn't realize that how we were just making stuff up on the fly, and because we had no tools, there was no dynamics, there was no cloth, there was none of that stuff. There was no hair back then. Yeah. It was very rudimentary tools and chains and stuff like that. I called it virtual duct tape and super glue when we were working on Casper and New Hope. So. And
you're working on Casper, you just kind of basically stumble into an unbelievable experience, obviously, as Boba Fett, during that same time period. So how did that come about where you kind of got, lured into that when you're already working on the other project?
It was so weird. Before my first day at ILM, before my first day at ILM, the weekend before, somebody volunteered to show me my desk and show me how to log into the computer to make my first login. I got my first email. And when I was visiting the studio, like I said, before even my first day, a person walks in while I'm playing the Jurassic Park pinball. And it's somebody I know from London, somebody I met like 6 months ago.
Oh.
And I was like, well, I didn't know you worked here. He goes, yeah, I told you I worked in America. I said, yeah, I knew you worked in America, but I didn't know you worked for George Lucas. You know, you could have said that. He goes, you're that big Boba Fett fan, aren't you? I said, yeah, that's me. He goes, yeah, I know the guy who runs the archives. It's off limits, but, you know, I could get you in if you want to go there one lunchtime. I was like, sign me up. If I could just see the Boba Fett suit, like just see a helmet, just touch it, the original one, that would be bucket list for me. So he took me to the archives, and I met Don Bees, who ran the archives back then. And me and Don hit it off. And Don, at the end of my visit, said, you know, you're welcome to come back anytime you like. I'm like, Don, you can't go offering that lightly, because I will take you up on that offer.
Right.
And I certainly did. I went back to the archives, I don't know how many times, but I had someone come in from into town from upstate or something, and we'd go visit the archives together. I showed him the land speeder and all the droids. And
did they keep pretty much everything? Was it all there?
Back then, yeah, it was pretty. I'm sure with the new museum, everything's being polished up, but back then it was just layers and layers and layers of shelves with just thermal detonator.
Wow.
Now I could, if I was really bad, like the devil on my shoulder, like stick it under your cap. Stick it under your cap and walk out. And the angel was like, no, put it back. But yeah, so that's how I got to know Don Bees. And when they were going to do a promotion for the re-releases of the movies, they wanted volunteers to be a stormtrooper. So they sent an email out, biggest mistake of their life. Sent an email out saying, who wants to be a stormtrooper? You can imagine how many people volunteered. And they got such a response that they thought, oh, well, we can maybe, with this many volunteers, do something much more, that much bigger than we originally anticipated. They were originally going to have all the license holders in a theater watching the new cut trailers for the re-releases. And at the end of it, suddenly stormtroopers would come filing down the theater, both sides. And then you'd hear Darth Vader's breath, and then Darth Vader would come out.
Wow.
And he would go to the front of the theater and he said, we'd be honored if you join us for refreshments or whatever. And they'd all file out and go have drinks. And that was the original plan. So they wanted some stormtroopers. They already had a Darth Vader. And when they had that response, they decided that they would reconstruct the cantina, Mos Eisley Cantina, on Skywalker soundstage, one of the sound stages, and have the drinks in there, actually in the bar.
Wow.
And have it populated with, characters and, aliens and band members, and, to make it look like and feel like you're actually in the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Wow.
And so Don contacted me, and I was sure it was going to be, you've been selected to be a stormtrooper. I thought it was going to be that conversation. And so when I picked up the phone, and he said, no, he goes, sorry, but you're too short to be a stormtrooper. Damn it. I'm just like Luke. Damn it. Too short. He goes, it's just kidding. He goes, there's another character that you might be interested in playing. And I'm like, don't mess with me now, Don. Don't mess with me. He goes, no. He goes, I'm just saying it that way because if you don't fit the flight suit that everything attaches to, then you're going to have to be a different character. But if you do fit the flight suit, then yes, you can be Boba Fett for the evening.
Wow.
And so, what jumping in that suit for 6 hours is like, even just 5 minutes is heaven, but 6 hours wearing it and walking around the cantina bar with aliens there and everyone in character. It was the trippiest, most surreal, most awesome experience for a Boba Fett / Star Wars fan that you can possibly imagine. Like, much better than the blue screen shoot that came later. This was, and it was, as I said, it was 6 hours, 4 hours for for the guests to be in there. And we had we was there an hour before, and we were wearing those suits an hour afterwards, dancing to music when they put music on in the cantina bar.
Wow.
But that's what led me to being selected for kind of the guy that fit the suit, is because they gave me this opportunity to do this Star Wars summit at Skywalker Ranch at Skywalker Sound. So,
and you were drawing Boba Fett since you were 13 or younger, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to be Boba Fett at 13 years old, and I didn't realize 15 years later it was going to happen.
Yeah,
like that. It was impossible to happen because all I'd seen at that point, because this is when the Kenner figure came out, before Empire even came out, I wanted to be Boba Fett because I'd read the bio, and because Boba Fett seemed to be the perfect blend of Star Wars and the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it was like my Man with No Name and Star Wars kind of slapped together. He was a bounty hunter. He had a poncho. He was in green. He had the Man of Mystery. Instead of a no name, he had no face. I fell in love with the character, before I just saw the movie.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Jeremy himself?
Oh yeah. Jeremy is the Fett father for me. He is the original. So I didn't get to meet him until really late. Actually, it wasn't until 2015 I got to meet him.
Oh wow, okay.
So a long time. 2015, I met him at Star Wars Celebration, and it was the Aaron Proctor, who runs the Boba Fett fan club.
Yes,
he was the guy that introduced me to Jeremy, Dickie, and John Morton all at the same time. Daniel was there, but he was off busy, as Daniel is. He's just hyper. So I didn't get to meet him that day, but Jeremy, 2015, and he took me aside. This was when we was in London together. We were doing the London Film and Comic Con 2017, and he took me aside and he goes, "Now, I've got a few rules. Now that you're a Fett, I've got a few rules for you." And I'm like, "Anything for you, Jeremy? Anything." He said, "He goes, I just have one golden rule, and that's just to be cool with fans." I said, "I think I'm cool with fans. I think that's something I've always done anyway. But yeah, glad to, And he goes, "That's my one rule. The Fets have got to be cool guys, like on and off the camera. Like I don't want anyone giving Fett off camera a bad name,
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard when you do these conventions and you turn up and you're jet lagged. You feel like crap, and you've got to be 10. You got to be on it. You got to be your best self for 8 hours. It's like an 8-hour interview, and then you can relax again. And then it gets worse because you go to bed tired, but you've missed your window. You're staring at the ceiling. You get even more tired. You get up. You got to be 10 again. And as the days progress, the harder it gets. But
and they say don't meet your heroes, but Jeremy was just one of the nicest guys in the industry. Any other memories you could share of Jeremy and just your experience meeting him for that first time?
Yeah, it was a great time. And the same Comic-Con in 2017, it was great because where I was, my table was, I was between Jeremy one side and I had Alan Harris the other side. So I had Bosk / prototype Boba Fett one side and Jeremy. It was the best signing situation I've ever been in. And at one point they had, they'd sold pre-sold photo op tickets.
Yep.
And so it was a photo op to have your picture taken standing in front of the Harning Carbonite with 4 Boba Fetts. So there was Dickie and Jeremy one side, and there was myself and Alan the other side. And so this is the first day I'd met Alan. I hadn't met Alan until this convention. But we were neighbors, like I said, so we were like ribbing each other all day. And so we're standing there and waiting for the guest to come and stand in front of the Harning Carbonite. He said, do you want to, how do you want to do this? Do you want to be friendly Fets or serious Fets? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you see Jeremy and Dickie over there. They're obviously the serious Fets because they're just standing there, you know.
Yeah.
He goes, we could be the friendly Fets. We could like put an arm around each other's shoulder if you want or something. So let's be the friendly Fets then. Let's be the friendly Fets. So we're there and went for the first person to come up. And he goes, you know who that is, don't you? This is Alan. He goes, you know who that is? And I said, what? Han Solo. He goes, no. Who's in there? I said, well, you mean Harrison Ford? Where are you going? No, he goes, who do you think the body is? And I said, Harrison Ford. No. He did the face, but that body's me. I said, really?
Wow.
So Bosk / prototype Boba Fett is the body of Harning Carbonite, and then Harrison came in just for the face casting, you know.
Wow, I never knew that. Wow.
There you go. It came from the horse's mouth, from Alan Harris himself.
That's great. Wow.
I guess it's more an Alan story than a Jeremy story, but
yeah, no, that's fantastic though. Very cool tidbit to learn there. And, you know, basically rewinding back just a little bit, you know, you said initially working for ILM, you didn't meet George Lucas right away. When was that first meeting with George, you know, and when did that take place eventually?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, it was during Casper that I got to jump in the suit and be Boba Fett. And this was December of 94. And my contract ended summer of 95. It was 18 months. So I get to the end of the 18-month contract, and I went up to HR, and I said, I'm just curious as to what the plans are, you know, getting home, basically, I was talking about. They said, oh, we have you down here as full-time employee. I said, oh, really? She said, is that okay? I said, yeah, it's more than fine. I just didn't know, you know. I didn't know till you just mentioned it. I got to tell my family because they're expecting me home. So I'm staying. She, we have you down as the creature animator for New Hope. I went, oh, my goodness, you know. There was only one slot available, and I didn't think I was going to get it. You know, I'd already had my luck. I thought my luck must have run out by now. I've got to see the Boba Fett suit, wear the Boba Fett suit, be in the Boba Fett suit in the movie. Now I get to animate in Star Wars. It's crazy. So she said, yeah. So that's when I got to meet George, was when I got to do the animation. So I didn't meet him. I only heard about when he saw the selects for the blue screen shoot. Because Steve Williams came and told me, he said, you know, it looks like you're mugging the camera. I said, really? I said, why didn't someone tell me? You know, I can't tell. I'm in the suit. He goes, yeah, your T-Vise are line striped with the camera, and it looks like you're mugging the camera. I was like, oh, no. For how many takes? All of them. All 11? Yeah, all 11. I said, why didn't someone say something? He goes, don't worry, George loves it. So first time I met George, I don't think he ever knew that I was his Boba Fett, ever. I was just the guy that was doing the animation, but I was just happy that he was happy with my take, and that he thought it was kind of cool that Boba Fett was the only person that could get away with mugging the camera in Star Wars.
Right. And seeing and wearing that original costume, you know, why don't you tell us the breakdown of that costume, you know, what it was made out of and how long it took to get into it and that sort of thing.
Well, the costume, I mean, there's never just one costume. That's why you see the different scratches on the different helmets, because they have to have multiple in case something tears, something rips. If something rips on camera and they have to mend it, how long is that going to take? So they have to have on hand spare everything. So I said to Don one time, I said, this is Don and Nelson Hall. I said, how many suits can you make with all the parts? He goes, maybe 5 or 7 suits, that many from all the spare pieces. I don't think 4 suits for that many, but that's what he said at the time. So so there isn't like one definitive suit. I was wearing a suit that had been worn in Jedi. And I knew that because my dresser was the same dresser for the guys at Buttercup Valley for the Sarlacc bit. Annie Polland, she was my wardrobe lady, and so she told me where she said the body mainly was from Jedi, and the helmet was from Empire. That's what she said.
Wow.
But the helmet was fiberglass, and inside were kind of wires, even though nothing really lit up in the suit, in the helmet I wore. But they did have the shoulder bells the wrong way around, and they were fixed, so it wasn't like a Velcro thing where we could just swap them. They were fixed, so I didn't know if it was going to notice in camera. And the first thing you see is that shoulder bell in camera with no mythosaur skull on it. Like, damn it. I wish I'd pushed harder, but I was just ecstatic to be in the suit and worried that if anything went wrong, then my chance to be in the suit was going to be gone,
Yeah.
So I just was nervous that the whole thing wasn't going to go correctly. And it was a whole day shoot. The morning was the walk-on, where walk-on stand next to Jabba. And the afternoon was to check the docking bay and exit and make my mark. So that was the afternoon. But the suit it took about half an hour to put on with everything. Wow. Just putting everything on piece by piece and tucking things in and checking them so you don't rush. Everything goes on in layers. Some things are attached, like the jacket. You put your arm through the jacket and it has all the armor already attached to it, like the shoulder bells and the breastplate. You just put it in, it velcros up at the back. But it wasn't the most comfortable suit. They never are. It wasn't the easiest suit to see out of. Not just because of the limited T-visor, but because in that soundstage it was so cold, your breath was just fogging up your visor. You couldn't see. So thank God for that vertical strip, because there was no way I'd be able to see my start position with that helmet on without that vertical, strip in the visor. So I could see my start point, I could see with my end point. And I remember I had the rifle, and I told you I was used to wearing this suit and handling this rifle because I'd spent 8 hours, 6+ hours wearing it on that convention, and it was so successful, that convention, they had a second one. So I'd had so much time in the suit, it was like rehearsal time for this one shoot. Plus in the morning they had me walk it because they had to try different heights of the camera and different lenses to see if they could reproduce what they had shot in 1976, because they destroyed all the camera data. So because they were guesstimating all of these things, the lens and the height and the position of the camera, they had me keep walking it. So I walked it. But the thing is that when I held the rifle, Steve, that was the other thing. George was maybe going to come and direct it. He never did, though. It was Steve Williams. But Steve said, could you crank the rifle to your left? So moved it to like that, further. Or like that? Yeah, like that. It was like this weird angle. Walk like that. So I had to walk like this for a good silhouette, for the blaster to be sticking out for a good silhouette. It felt as uncomfortable as anything. Like I felt like all my hard training in studying Jeremy's walk from Empire, when they're wheeling they're pushing the repulsor lift Han Solo. I thought all my studies for nothing because I have to walk with this weird angle, and I was sure that it must look crap on film. It looks great. It looks great. But it felt the most awkward thing in the world, that first shot.
Yeah.
Second shot, they didn't complain. I could just hold it normally, but the first shot, I had to crank it right around.
Oh man.
It was very
And
rough.
what's your memory of the sets themselves? Were they huge or were they kind of small and compact, in person?
I mean, it was a huge blue screen set, but it was just a blue screen. So there was a piece of tape on the blue screen that indicated if you were looking at Han and Chewie going up the ramp, you'd be looking at their eye line, and this piece of tape represented their eye line at the top of the Falcon ramp.
Oh.
So when I was looking anywhere, that's one of the places they wanted me to look and check. But otherwise, it was just a blue screen. I mean, I wish I was in front of the Falcon. I would have given anything to be in front of that life-size Falcon. But
yeah,
no, it's just a blue screen. So.
And all these major projects that you've gone on to do throughout the years, for fans that are curious, the casting process. Why don't you kind of just walk us through what that looks like in your line of work?
I mean, it's a lot different casting now to back then. Back then, I didn't even need a show reel or resume because people would find you. They look at the credits, Casper. So I had people call me at ILM and say, "Do you want to come to Disney?" I know. "Want to come to Disney?" No. "How about if we offer you this much?" No. And they kept up in the offer, kept just relentless. And in the end, I went to ILM and I said, "Do you think there's any chance of a pay rise? Because I'm getting some crazy offers from Disney. I don't want to leave. I'd rather stay here, but I was wondering if I could maybe get a pay rise." And no, you're at the top of the pay scale for what we pay animators. Okay. Well, and then my friends that did go to Disney were telling me about all the artist development program they had there for lecturers to come in and sculpting classes and life drawing classes, 3 life drawing teachers a week. Had Ray Harryhausen giving lectures, Mark Hamill gave a lecture. It sounded like as an artist you could really grow there. So it was probably the hardest, biggest fork in the road life decision I've ever had to make is to stay at ILM or leave for Disney. But I still wonder to this day what would have happened if I'd stayed at ILM. But because there were so few animators, you really didn't need a resume. People wanted you because there were very few people to get hold of, So those early years were very simple because people wanted you. You're one of the few people that have shown you can do it. Now there's so many computer animators. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so flooded. You think with all the films I've worked on, it'd be simple to get a job, but it's not. They usually equate experienced with expensive. They could hire 2 junior animators for what my rate is.
Right.
But my question to them is, but who's going to do the most work and the best work in a week?
Yes.
So it's a different game now, but I can see her retirement 5 years off. So if I could just make it that far,
right? You're on that last stretch.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned the convention scene. Sitting next to the great Alan Harris, and that was one of your favorite moments. But why don't you tell us maybe some of the other conventions you've been to over the years and the fan interactions and what's that like, kind of interacting with the fans one-on-one? Well,
it's very easy to interact with the fans just because I completely understand their mindset. Being one of them, that's how that's how it's different for me than the other guests there, because I'm the fan that was allowed to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, as much as I love Jeremy, that he was just given a suit and said, put this on. These are your lines or whatever. This is what you're doing. He had no connection to that suit. I mean, he did when he passed, obviously, but when he got issued that suit, there was no connection. But for me, when I got given that suit, I had, like I said, 15 years of memories, stepping into that suit with me. So when it comes to conventions, it's a lot different interacting with the fans, I think, for me, than it would be for someone who's just an actor that it was just one of their many roles, in many franchises, and it just happened to be the one that they turned up for. But for me, it was a privilege to be part of Star Wars. When you're a fan of something, when you're a kid and you're a fan of something, you want any kind of association to that thing you love. Whether it means cutting out Star Wars logos from cereal packets or something like that, or collecting Letraset transfers and putting them on things you possess to make them Star Wars. Now, the ultimate gift or collectible is to be part of this thing that you love. So that's something I try and share with fans when I meet them. I try and let them know that that I'm one of them. I'm just as much of a geek and a nerd as they are, and I love all these pop culture characters and movies just as much. And being able to work on so many of the things of the franchises and movies that I've loved is why I can't ever complain about my career. If it ends this second, I've got nothing to complain about. I've had a very blessed career, and that one movie, Casper, turned into over 50 movies over the years. So it's a different situation now that I've done so many conventions. You get used to being able to turn that switch on, and whether you feel crappy because you've just spent the whole night on a red eye, you have to switch that switch and be there, because someone has driven all those hours or traveled all that way to see you. So when I'd look across and see, I'm not going to mention any names, but see other guests that look like they want to be anywhere but where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not the kind of memory I'd like to leave with a fan with,
Right.
Like seeing me looking bored. No. So I try and give every person that comes to see me, give them some time. I don't like to rush. As another thing from Jeremy. Jeremy is like, he's not going to let anyone rush him. If he wants to walk around that table to the other side, whether security let him or not, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And if it comes to taking a picture, I mean, you have to cross the table. You can't take a picture either side of a table together. So yeah, I try and make it memorable for the fan. That fan that's going to turn up and pay that money and come all that way, I'm going to give him something back, or give her something back that they will remember, for years. I remember when I was a kid, I met Peter Mayhew before, it must be 1982, before Jedi came out. And it was such a fond memory that is something I'd like to instill to these fans that turn up, the Star Wars fans. Like, give them that same kind of memory that I took with me from meeting Peter. So.
And how did Jeremy Bulloch's passing affect you, and what would you say his legacy is?
I mean, it was that was a bad year because we lost three good ones that year. We lost Alan Harris, we lost David Prowse, and we lost Jeremy all in 1 year. So that was a terrible year, and with COVID and everything as well. So
Right.
I mean, it goes without saying that that I miss him, and Maureen still continues his legacy. His wife Maureen, she continues to keep his memory alive, and I don't think it will ever die. Legends never die. So he had the best, and still has the best looking signature out there.
Yeah.
It's so neat and clear, and everyone is just identical. Yeah, it was really hard, and that was the thing, is that it's one thing to meet your heroes, but it's another thing to befriend your heroes. So from doing these conventions, I didn't ever expect this, but I didn't expect to befriend these characters that I was fans over as a kid. A lot of the Ewoks I know, all the Fets I know. We email each other, or send each other messages, or try and get each other invited to conventions. And I'm really good friends with Jim Swearingen, who's the toy designer for the Kenner series. But I never foresaw that. When I wanted to jump in the suit, that's all I wanted to do. I never looked beyond that experience. Right. I just wanted to be in the suit, like we were saying, if you can be part of something that you love, that is the penultimate, you can't get any higher than that. And so I didn't think about conventions, or I didn't think about making friends of these Star Wars celebrities. So when the Star Wars celebrities pass, it's more than just a news, and something on my news feed. It's somebody that I know personally, and that we spent time with. And some people you get to see a lot more often than others. Like Yak Face, yes. Sean, I'm blanking on Sean's name. Yak Face, Yak Face?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What's the name, Sean?
I don't know his last name, but I can picture him, but I don't know his name.
But he's like a typical character that I always see at conventions. I always see Sean. They're just some, like Dickie Beer. I'd always see Dickie Beer at conventions. So I've probably done more signings with Dickie Beer than any other Boba Fett's, I think. But that's something that is amazing and awesome, but also crushing when they pass, is that it's more than just a news story to you. It's somebody that you were in contact with regularly, and means it was a personal friend.
Yeah.
You spend some quality time with, and whenever we do these conventions, we always look forward to when the convention's over, we can go back to the bar and hang out.
Right, exactly.
So we have a convention after the conventions usually.
Yes.
And that's just, being a Star Wars fan, that's just a privilege to be part of.
What would you say is your biggest takeaway from being a part of the special edition, Star Wars New Hope? What's your biggest takeaway from that?
The biggest takeaway is just being able to say I'm Boba Fett and it be completely honest. Like there's something, like I said, if you're a fan of something, it doesn't get any better than having a day come that you can say, I am Boba Fett,
Yeah.
Like, just saying those words is the hugest take out for me.
Sure.
And I'm sure people, like, there's people I work with that they'll know that I'm Boba Fett. At some point, they'll find out or they'll know. But because I work with them, it kind of goes in one ear and goes out the other. And years later, someone will mention Boba Fett and they'll be, "Oh yeah, you're Boba Fett," and remember it. But for me, I live it every day. I live being Boba Fett.
Yeah.
It's like I said, if I wasn't solely a Boba Fett fan when I joined Lucasfilm, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird whenever I think about it. Like I said, it shouldn't have happened because, like I said, I fell in love with Boba Fett at the end of New Hope. So Empire hadn't even come out. So all I had was Boba Fett and New Hope as my, backdrop of any kind of imagination or stories or anything with action figures. So it's so weird to be Boba Fett from New Hope after all these years.
Yeah. And I see you've got a lot of great collectibles there in the background. Do you have any specific keepsake that maybe means the most to you from your career that you still have to this day?
Yeah. There's a few. One is my Riddell helmet, a Riddell Boba Fett helmet, a small one that Mark Hamill signed. That means a lot because it brings back memories of a great 5-hour period of time that I spent with Mark Hamill, just chatting 5 hours. It was amazing. So, and this helmet will remind me of that forever. So that's one. Another one is, if you remember in the Kenner figures, the 300th Kenner figure was Boba Fett from Empire holding the gun.
Yes.
And shortly after that released, I was on eBay and I was bidding for, I thought it was a test shot for that figure. I thought it was just a test shot, before it's painted, but it wasn't. It was it was before it was even jointed. It was like hard resin sculpt.
Yeah.
And each piece snapped together with a little kind of weird kind of like a crab pincher kind of connection.
Oh, yeah.
And I have that figure in its entirety, apart from the backpack. The backpack and the cape with the two pieces that went with it. But I managed to get it for $700. And as soon as I won the bid, the guy offered me $2,500 for it. I was like, no.
I was going to say that's got to be worth a lot more now.
That's one of my biggest ones. And my third one is my bag I use every day. This bag, and this one's special to me because it was a present from Spielberg. It's a Warhorse.
Oh wow!
Warhorse saddlebag, but I use that as my work bag every day. I love that bag. So they're probably my 3 favorite things.
That's great. The evolution of Star Wars franchise. What's your take on where it all began and where it is today? Still pumping out lots of great content.
Well, I mean, I understand where the fans from the original trilogy are coming from with the new stuff. I understand. I don't necessarily agree because when Star Wars came out, I would have given anything in 1978 for an Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah.
I would have given anything with that kind of, especially that kind of attention to detail and level of effects and everything like that. It was just, I would have given my right leg for content like that and TV series. Everyone's complaining about it now, and because the Star Wars phenomenon is just that. It's a phenomenon that happened. Anyone that lived in that time, 1977 to 1983, and experienced that in the cinema, it's a phenomenon that it can't be continued because it exists just as a phenomenon.
Right.
So I think that's where everyone has this kind of crazy beef with the new stuff, is that the new stuff for them is kind of diluting this phenomenon, which is like the Bible, the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
But I love Star Wars imagery, so when I see images, new images of like the Imperial shuttle from any of the new series that come out, it's just a great new image of the Imperial shuttle. I'm not complaining about the content. I just love the imagery, so I can't get enough of it, really.
Yeah.
There's some of it is better than others. Like I love Andor. Andor's probably my favorite. That and Rogue One. But I personally, the new stuff for me actually is the reason I don't do as many conventions now. It's because nobody wants to do the old original trilogy. Everyone wants the new series, Ahsoka or Book of Boba Fett or Skeleton Crew. They want those guys. So it's harder to get convention gigs because everyone wants the new Disney stuff. So there's that. But I personally think that that as a kid living today, as a Star Wars fan living today as a kid, you've got so much stuff to play with.
Right.
Imagination just can go haywire. So
they've expanded the franchise, that is for sure.
Yeah.
And all these years, what would you say is the greatest piece of advice that you've received?
What's the greatest piece of advice? Maybe it's from this is before I started at Lucasfilm. This is when I was still doing the drawn animation. And I was at a Christmas party with my boss. And my boss was Tony Catania. He was one of the two owners of the company. And he was the artist. There were two people that ran it. Tony Catania, who was the artist, and Ron White, who was the businessman.
Mm.
But Tony Catania, I went to him and I said to him, Tony, when am I going to master timing? When am I going to get my timing down as an animator? Because timing is everything, He said, you will never master it. And I was floored. I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. He looked at the expression on my face and he said, "You don't look so sad. It's a good thing." I said, "How can it be a good thing? You've just told me I'll never get to master timing." And he goes, "No, I'm telling you that you never should feel like you've mastered timing." He goes, the artist that has decided that he has mastered something has stopped learning. He's going to plateau from that point onwards.
Right.
He goes, I'm retiring. And I'm retiring still not having learned everything there is to learn about timing, animation, filmmaking. He goes, that's how you want to end your career, with questions still. If you feel like you've reached a certain point, there's nowhere to climb to anymore. There's nowhere to go.
Right.
So that was probably the biggest piece of advice that set me on my career on a trajectory that felt like it was bolstered by that. A lot of people strive for perfection, and they'll make a mistake, and the mistakes stay devastating.
Right.
My kids would say to me, I'd look at my kids' drawings, and I said, "That's a great drawing. I love the way you've curled the fingers around the pencil in this drawing of the hand holding a pencil." "Oh, but it's not as good as you. It's not as good as you." You don't understand how many mistakes I made. How many? I didn't get to this point overnight. I made all the mistakes there is to make. The mistakes are your friend, and you should use them as opposed to let them crush you. Especially when competition is so high, like it is now. It is ridiculous. Like I said, I'm fighting these guys for jobs, and it took me almost 3 years to find a job, during that slump. So.
You've been successful on both sides of the fence, animation versus, acting on set, like Boba Fett, for instance. Do you have a preference between the two now that you've experienced both of them?
I don't have a preference really. I mean, I don't get to do as much acting as I would like to. As a kid, I always wanted to be an actor, but I always felt that animation was the way to be an actor, like invisibly. It's funny that at the end of a movie, that we'll finish a movie like Dinosaur, and they'll make the making of footage, and all the credit goes to D.B. Sweeney because he provided the voice of Aladar. And there's interviews with D.B. Sweeney about the making of Dinosaur, and all he did was went to the sound booth and recorded his lines. And it's an art. I'm not going to say it isn't. It is definitely an art, but it's almost like we as animators were forgotten. Like the animation made itself. Like I took his voice and I applied physicality to it, and as the performance, but I always said that I felt like an invisible actor as an animator. So for that reason, I like being in front of the camera and jumping in the suit and doing stuff. But my career has been dominated by animation and effects. So yeah.
What would you say has been your greatest challenge within the industry?
Greatest challenge? I don't know. There've been so many. I don't look at them as challenges anymore because I guess you get given the challenge, and when you overcome it, then it just gets forgotten. Like I meant to mention Dinosaur. The biggest challenge on Dinosaur is making dinosaurs speak believably. How do you make a dinosaur speak believably? Especially when it's an iguanodon, because an iguanodon has side-facing eyes, so herbivore. It's like a rabbit, it has to look sideways. So what we had to do is, when we designed the characters, I took those side-facing eyes and just bent them this way, 45 degrees, so you can get a read from the front. That way you can get a read of the eyes and the mouth and get facial expressions to read.
Right.
That was the challenge, and that was met. There was a challenge of how we're going to make these characters speak in Casper. How are we going to make them speak? I don't know. Let's do some stuff, do some tests. When it comes to any effects show, how are we going to do this? My job in pre-viz and post-viz is to come up with the solutions of how they're going to do this effect. Is it going to be a blue screen composite? Is it going to be something practical? Is it going to be some film reversed to get the illusion to work? Is it going to be prosthetics? Is it going to be something on set? So my job on a day-to-day basis is how are we going to ...
Yeah.
My current job, how are we going to do this sequence? Come up with a solution, come up with a version of the sequence to show the directors and see if they get a buy-off on your solution.
Right.
It's my daily job is to make some impossibility possible. Because otherwise, why take it to animation? You could just shoot it.
Exactly.
But they couldn't get this animal to do this, for the movie, or they couldn't get this animal because it doesn't exist. It's a made-up monster. But we have to bring it to life somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about what the greatest challenge would be in the 36. No, longer than that. 36-year career. I started in 89. 37.
37, yeah. Yep. Well, challenges have come and you've tackled them all. On the flip side of that, though, what has the most rewarding been for you within the industry?
The most rewarding, when everyone says, what of all these movies is your favorite to work on? It was always New Hope, just because of the content. But I must say that when I worked on Ultraman Rising for Netflix, that took the spot, because it was an 18-month job, and the reason it took the spot is because the whole production crew that I was working with, everybody just had the same mindset to make the best movie possible. Everyone checked their egos at the door and didn't bring them to work, and we just want to make the best movie possible. And the ego can be the biggest hindrance to a movie.
Right.
It doesn't mix well. So Ultraman knocked Star Wars off the top. But saying that, I think my current show might be my favorite show of all time. I definitely feel that the work on my current show has been the best work I've done, period. I think the strongest work I've done, period. So I can't actually say what I'm working on because they announced it.
Okay, yeah.
I can't actually say what I'm working on because the director announced it. I can't tell you details about it, but I can tell you what it is. I'm working for Warner Brothers for a movie, Oh, the Places You Can Go, or Oh, the Places You'll Go, the Dr. Seuss book.
Oh, okay.
It's an adaptation of that book. But the reason that this has taken the spot is just because I just look forward to going to work.
Right.
Like tomorrow, Monday, should be normally would be a kind of it's Monday tomorrow. But for me, I just can't.
You're excited about
wait
it.
to get to work. Yeah. And when it comes to 6 o'clock, it's like, it's 6 o'clock. I go home. I feel working on this show like I did when I worked on Casper. Because on Casper, like I said, I felt like I was being paid to be on holiday.
Yeah.
I felt like I was being paid to play on computers all day. And they literally did at 6 o'clock kick you off the computer and say, go home. But I want to finish. No, go home. But can I just finish? No, go home. They literally kick you off because that was overtime. And they didn't want overtime. It was union. But working on this movie is akin to working on Casper. I'm looking forward to going to work every day and enjoying not just the movie content, but the people I work with, the facility. I'm loving it. I was getting a bit jaded. If you asked me like 6 months ago, I would have been a bit jaded about the future of my career because I wasn't finding that I was getting that reward,
right?
Like I was, and thinking, it's a good thing that retirement's coming up, But this movie, this is gonna be a fun one.
Well, that's the thing when you're doing so much for so many years. There are always going to be ups and downs, but you never know what's next. You never know, what's coming around the corner, and it could be something spectacular that you just don't even see coming.
Yeah, and you always have these things you want to work on and never do, and then you get surprised. Prizes come out from left field. Like last year, I was surprised to get offered a job on the Blue Eye Samurai 2. So that was a passion project for me because I loved the season 1 of Blue Eye Samurai. So I was jazzed to work on season 2. But yeah, I've never worked on an alien movie. I'd love to work on an alien movie one day. But I've done the Star Wars, Star Trek, Predator.
You were involved in Thor and Avengers, right?
I did the first Avengers and Thor: Dark World. The first Avengers, that was a huge challenge because that was such a huge undertaking. Doing the effects for that movie. It was a 10 to 12 month gig, and I was commuting every day from where I live in Glendale to Manhattan Beach, which is horrible 2-hour commute every day. So it's 4 hours sitting in the car every day for a year for Avengers, but such a fun project to work on as well.
Yeah. Plus King of the Monsters, Godzilla, Goosebumps. You know, you've been a part of so many wonderful projects. Let's talk a little bit more about, real brief, the 2024 Ultraman. You know, huge fan of Ultraman growing up as a kid. Actually, in about 2 months, I'm going to be meeting the original Ultraman from the 1960s.
Oh, nice.
Very excited to meet Ben. You know, it's going to be a pleasure. But I've always been a fan. I've always appreciated Ultraman. For some reason, I was like you with Boba Fett. I was always just kind of drawn to Ultraman. So, you know, what was that experience like for you?
Like I said, Ultraman was my top movie to work on when I was working on it, because of the ego thing, but also just because of the content as well.
Yeah.
I had so much fun on that movie. That was probably the biggest contribution I've made to a movie. Is, you know, we get to work on sequences, but 98% of the time you're working with a crew, and so either you're on the crew or you're supervising the crew, but you're in a crew that is churning out these shots, stringing them together, and trying to make these sequences flow and tell the story. When I worked for Netflix, that's when COVID hit and we were sent home, and I was pitched a sequence. The directors would pitch you a sequence in storyboards, and you'd have to take that and make it into a 3D version of that sequence. So, and you didn't have any crew. This was just working by yourself. So it was just you on your own. And so for Ultraman, I got to design 12 of the sequences. I think there's 47 sequences in the movie. So that's a quarter of the movie. So, and they're the biggest sequences as well, the most action sequences. When it's kind of easy dialogue, not necessary for previous, not necessary, but if it's action and you're stringing action shots together, yeah, definitely previous is the way to go, so you can kind of plan those shots out.
Sure.
Make sure that it flows, you know, and that your eyes are jumping around the screen trying to keep up with the action. So, yeah, Ultraman was a big one for me just because that was the most I've ever contributed, you know. A quarter of the movie, that's a lot. But it was, I remember the initial question was, how big are we going to make Ultraman? Because he's technically 165 feet tall. But we were heading more for 130 feet, just because it kind of worked better with the buildings and that for framing and stuff.
Yeah.
And Shannon Tyndall, the director, was adamant that he didn't want, because when my initial tests, I made Ultraman huge, you know, 165 feet tall. No, I wanted to be more like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like they're huge robots, but they're running, you know.
Right.
Speed lions. He goes, I want them to be huge but fast.
Right.
So that's why we went and took Ultraman in that kind of direction, kind of more Evangelion style. But yeah, it was such a joy. I'm so hoping that one day they'll call me and say, "Can you work on the sequel?"
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, never say never, for sure. You know.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Star Wars characters, you know, going back to that briefly, obviously Boba Fett, number one for you, but who were some of your other favorite characters chiming in your inner fan?
From Star Wars?
Yeah.
My original favorite, I mean, from New Hope, you know, because Boba Fett wasn't in New Hope originally. So after New Hope, I wanted to be a stormtrooper so bad. Like, I just loved the stormtrooper suit. I was obsessed with stormtroopers. And I think that is, my obsession with stormtroopers is so great that I was disappointed in Force Awakens because they changed the stormtrooper. That was one of the biggest disappointments to me. If they kept the stormtrooper, they can do what they want with the ships. They can modify the ships however they want to make
Yeah.
the ships. But I wish they'd kept the Stormtrooper, just something from the original, a through line, something carrying through from the original Empire.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, so I loved Stormtroopers. I always loved the aliens from the Cantina. So Hammerhead was a huge.
Oh yes.
I loved Hammerhead. I think big Vader fan. Loved Vader. I really liked Luke in his Bespin fatigues.
Yes.
Like Bespin fatigue, Luke is my favorite Luke.
Yeah.
I wanted that suit so bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're the kind of big ones. I love Chewbacca. Chewbacca's awesome as well.
Yeah.
That's why I named my dog Wookiee.
Oh, excellent. That's
Wookiee
wonderful.
Chewbacca Austin.
And when it comes to technology, kind of just a theoretical thing here, what's one thing that you wish you had back then when you started that is around today? And what do you wish you had today that maybe has kind of gone by the wayside and isn't used anymore, if anything?
Well, the biggest thing for me is I wish I'd learned to type. Because when I was at school, if you took typing lessons, you got beaten up.
Yeah.
Because you were a sissy secretary, but now I wish I could type. I wish I could use Google. I should have learned at some point over these years, but never did. So that's one of my biggest regrets. Something that I had and that isn't around today. I'm not sure. That's a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, maybe everything's kind of progressed the way it should have, but could be something.
I always, it fascinates me still that I can talk to somebody through my watch,
right.
Things like that. Like we have video screens.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, video touch screens, stuff like that. But I am really glad that I remember a time that these things didn't exist. I'm so glad I lived in a world that didn't have electronics.
Yeah.
We grew up with the old telephones and just milkmen delivering milk in the morning. And I'm so glad I've seen that change. Times do change. You just have to accept it. And people can gripe as much as they want about the good old days, but things are going to change. But I'm so glad that I'm witness to that period of time. Feel very blessed to have been living in the time period I've lived in. Like if I could choose where on the centuries I could live, this is kind of the ideal slot for me. So
okay.
But I can't think of anything I miss from the past that I would use today for anything. I can't think.
So the big thing for me is, the lack of physical media. I'm a big physical media supporter, big collector, so what's your take on, digital versus physical and how physical is kind of shifted by the wayside?
I'm the same as you. I'm not a big fan of, when you buy a game, you just have this electronic piece of information that says that you own it, and you don't physically have. I miss the manuals that came with games.
Yes.
I loved pouring through a manual before I even put the game disc in. I'd be looking at all the pictures. I would have my collections all lined up, all the game cases there, and so I'm not a big fan of. It's convenient for the immediacy of it. Like, I'd like to watch Aeronauts. Oh, what's that available on? I'll buy that, and I can watch it. Everything's at your fingertips,
Yeah.
But I do miss magazines and books, and not being able to. It sounds weird. I never thought I'd miss not being able to choose what I watch, but there was something cool about this is the programming, and if you want to see it, you have to be in front of the TV at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And if
Take
you
it or
missed it,
leave
you
it.
missed it. It's gone.
Yeah.
There's something so amazingly tangible and fragile and awesome about that
Yeah.
inconvenience. And I
The
never,
Wizard of Oz, it would play once a year or twice a year, and you had to be there for
yeah.
it,
And if you wanted to video it, and if it was on the channel, which wasn't the BBC, you'd have to be waiting. When I videoed Star Wars on VHS, and when the commercials came, hit the pause button, and at the end of the commercials, unpause, so that I have as close as I could to like my own copy of Star Wars.
Right.
Every now and again, would flash up that title screen for the commercials, but
Yeah.
otherwise, I had like my own copy of it, and it was treasure. It was.
Yeah.
I think you valued things a lot more then because everything's so replaceable now as well. Like,
Right. It's true.
oh, this is broken, I get a new one, and you can go on Amazon and get exactly the one that you just broke. Exactly. I don't know. As awesome as it is, I'm so glad I lived and appreciate and remember the times before this kind of immediacy and everything at your fingertips and everything customizable. You can customize your day. I'm going to watch this morning, and then this afternoon do this. Yeah.
And where can fans follow you?
I'm on most platforms. They kicked me off of X for some reason.
Oh.
They said that anyone that knows my content, it's behind the scenes content. It's very, very tame, safe.
Right.
The closest to horror or something bad would be prosthetics from behind the scenes, like maybe some makeup or some blood on them. But for some reason, and they did this a number of times, is cancel my feed on Twitter or X. And after the last one, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to.
Not worth it.
It's not. I've given up with those guys.
Yeah.
And when they were asking about the check mark and, you pay or whatever it is a month for having this check mark to prove who you were, and I'm done with that.
Right.
But you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Threads. I'm on, I think it's Blue Sky.
Yep.
All of those.
Excellent. All right.
And it's all under. Sorry.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
It's all under at Boba Fett ANHSE, and ANHSE stands for Our New Hope Special Edition.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And obviously, we look forward to your upcoming projects and your current project, like you were just speaking of. But fast forward many years from now, you look back at your career as a whole. What do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
I just want to be remembered as being one of the artists that help contribute to a lot of people's childhoods, their loves. An example, when Treasure Planet came out and it tanked at the box office, the biggest reward has been all of there's so many fans for Treasure Planet. It's like a cult following, and just for someone to write a note to me and say thank you for making my childhood, that's the legacy that I always wanted. And it's not something I have to wait for. I get it already, when I post on TikTok, I post on TikTok some excerpts of, I can post exactly the piece I animated, like a show reel, and say I animated this character in these shots.
Right.
And having adults contact me and say thank you for, man, I watched that movie to death. Like my son loves this movie. I watch it with my children now. That's the legacy I always wanted, and If I can bring that to someone and they thank me for it, that's the biggest take back for me.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you for all of your contributions. And like I said, look forward to seeing what's next for you and what you have coming out. So we'll be eyes peeled for sure as we go into 2026 here and into 2027. And just thank you so much for taking the time and being here. It's been my pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. It's been an honor.
For the great Mark Anthony Austin, I'm Joseph Bruen. This has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Love to hear from you, the fans, what you thought of this episode. And we will see you all next time. Thank you so much, Mark.